Hello, it's the morning again. I have written 1,286 words, which was probably about an hour's worth. I'm struggling a little bit with this part. I went back to the series that I'm writing, and I'm just struggling a little bit with this one. I did get a good amount of words, but I can just tell that it's more of a slog to get through, and that could be because I'm getting to the midpoint, which this whole what Save the Cat calls the fun and games section is usually the hardest, because it's the part in the middle that lots of stuff happens and you need it ultimately to lead to something, and something interesting, and then have something happen and have it switch. And I'm just finding that this sort of mini climax, or like the first one, is harder for me. I've thought it through, at least I thought, but when I'm in it, I feel a little more lost. And it could be because this book is focused on one of my three main characters, and this is the one that I have the hardest time writing for. It's the male character. He's a police officer. He is of Hispanic descent, and it is just really far out of what I typically... It's so far out of who I am that it's hard to find his voice sometimes. He's also very athletic, which is not me. And so writing for him has been one of the biggest challenges I have had, because he's just so much not who I am as a person, whereas my other two female characters are a little bit more like me. They're sort of weird amalgamations of me and some other people, but I can understand them a little bit better and I can write for them better. Whereas the male character, I'm really having a hard time with. I kind of found his voice within the last few stories that I wrote with everybody, so I kind of know how he talks, but when it comes to certain actions that he's supposed to do, especially since they're supposed to be geared towards what police officers would actually do, I have to do a lot more research and a lot more like, well, would he actually do this? Can he do this? Would he get in trouble for doing this? And so it's a lot more complicated than just some random pedestrian on the street doing whatever they want because they don't know any better. He knows better, so I have to be very careful on what I let him do, because he would have to be. So that is, I don't know. With an hour, I could usually do almost 2,000 words on a character that I am more familiar with and better at writing. With him, I'm very happy with the 1,200 because I just feel it's just hard to get through. But on moments like that, it's also when I just need to keep writing and stop second guessing and just keep telling myself you can fix it in editing. This sentence may not sound great. It's fine. You can fix it in editing. I don't particularly love the editing. It's harder. It's more involved. I like it in the fact that it makes the story better. But creative writing is a lot easier because you can just kind of let it flow and you don't have to think. And those problems you can kind of push aside, whereas editing is like, no, I have to address these problems. So right now I'm just trying to like repeat in my head, this is the fun part. Just let your creativity go. It doesn't have to be specific. It doesn't have to be right. You can fix it later. Just get the words on the page, because you can't edit a blank page, which I think is something I've heard like everyone says. So get words down, you can fix it later. If you don't get the words down, you can't fix anything. And I'm sort of at that point where I'm like, look, you just need to get stuff down and then maybe mentally take a break from the story once the first draft is finished, and then come back to it and really nitpick it. I didn't have all the answers for the first book when I wrote. I actually was less it was less thought through in the first book, and I found that things came together eventually. So I need to just sort of let go of that perfectionism of trying to get the actual plot perfect and just get the words down, which is hard. It's hard when you're writing things and you're like, this is not the best thing I've ever written. But that's okay. Most first drafts aren't the best thing you've ever written. Usually the best thing that you've ever written comes in editing. So that's where I'm at. My kids are getting close to waking up. I can hear them upstairs. But one of the great things about having my kids home for the holidays is that I do get a little extra time in the morning before I have to wake them up and get them to school. So I actually had an hour to write versus usually I get like 20 minutes. So this extra time I think is better for me to work on the story that's harder for me, because I have more time to think things through. And then when it gets back to like 20-minute sprints, I need to kind of go back to the other story because that one kind of flows faster and I can get more words down. But for the first day of writing for 2025, that's not too bad, and I'm pretty proud of it. So very, very happy with how this morning turned out. One of the reasons that I decided to name this channel Rustic Quill is because, along with writing and being a mom, I am also a homesteader. We raise our own sheep, rabbits, we have ducks, chickens, a dog, barn cats. Did I say rabbits? I think I said rabbits. The only 3 animals on our farm that are working animals and not for food is the dog and the cats. And one of the things about living on a farm and raising animals is that sometimes things don't go the way you want them to. And while I talked about this morning, it's January 2nd, having a really good writing morning and feeling really good about the day, I went out to do farm chores and everyone looked okay until I went into the hay room where I was getting hay for the sheep, and I found one of our barn cats dead. And I had to, because I'm the only one here, my husband's at work, I had to take him, our little cat, to we have a wood chip pile where we bury all the animals that don't make it. And I had a little cry. We had 2 cats and they were brothers. And so I don't know why, but it feels worse knowing that like they grew up together and now one of them's not there anymore. The one still around when I was moving the cat in the wagon, the dead one in the wagon, the brother was like sniffing it. And you know, I don't honestly believe that animals have the same feelings as humans, but I do think they sense something. And then I had to tell my kids. And I was actually holding it together pretty good until I saw the other cat sort of sniffing his brother and then having to tell my kids about it. That was hard. And then burying it was also hard. That's just one of those hard things that, you know, not a great start to the year, but it's kind of how living on a farm is. And so that's one of the reasons I like to write, is I think it kind of lets me escape some of the sad stuff. So I'm glad I was able to do a little bit of writing this morning before this happened, before I was emotionally drained, because I don't know if I'll feel like writing the rest of the day. But yeah, that's one of the reasons I came up with the name Rustic Quill, is that not only am I a writer, but I'm also a mom, and I also work on a farm. And it's not a big farm. We have a little over 5 acres. That's why we have a lot of smaller animals. But things like this happen a lot. Just random things that you can't always foresee. Stuff happens, and, you know, life is just hard sometimes. You know, not only just being a mom is chaotic and hard, but so is farming. Writing for me is sort of my my escape into something a little bit more fun, something where it's more mental and creative and fun. It's my creative outlet when things get really hard and I need something to distract my mind from some things that are sometimes kind of sad. I know that a lot of people, when they see farm stuff, they just want to see all the good, happy stuff. But it's not always happy, and sometimes this kind of feeling is what's needed and what that can help you pour into the writing that you're doing, depending on what you write. But you can kind of dig into those feelings, and that can help feed the words. I'm gonna go back downstairs with the kids. We haven't had breakfast yet. I was putting off breakfast till after chores because chores was supposed to be really quick, and ended up being a little longer than I thought. So I'm getting hungry, and I'm sure the kids are. And yeah, I don't even know what time it is. I think it's before 9, and it's just everything seems to happen very quickly in the morning. And you never know what you're gonna expect. So.